of any one of you, and I'm going to start firing. You, fill that bag up just as fast as you know how. You, take that gun out of the holster. Be awful careful how you do it.
Hey, hello, and welcome to my channel. And as you can see from the title, we're going to take a look at Stanley Kubrick's 1956 film, The Killing, a black and white crime story about a heist at a racetrack. Now, my analysis here on my channel is usually about Kubrick's newer films, say from the late 1960s onwards. But since I haven't yet reviewed any of Kubrick's 1950s films, I thought now would be a good time to take a look at The Killing. So let's get started. Now, when our film opens, we're at the horse racing track, which will feature prominently later on in the film. But for now, we're going to meet our main character, Johnny Clay, who just got out of prison after 5 years locked up. And he's back with his girlfriend, Faye, explaining to her about a big heist he's planning that will allow them to fly away and start a new life. If I'm being honest, Faye seems a bit emotional and just sort of goes along with what Johnny is planning. But this was made in the 1950s. I'm not sure you'd see a character like Faye on the screen nowadays. At this point, we start to meet some of the other guys that will be involved in the heist, including the cashier from the racetrack, George, and his wife, Sherry. And oh boy, this really feels like a noir film now because Sherry is a very glamorous lady, lounging around at home, and she doesn't treat George very good, ordering him to make her a drink as soon as he walks in. She doesn't really love him, but she's definitely interested in the hundreds of thousands of dollars he could make from the heist. And of course, Sherry also has a handsome boyfriend on the side named Val, and she's going to tell him all about this big heist. Then Johnny and George and the other guys meet to plan out the details of the heist. It seems like some doubts are starting to creep in, but everyone is on board. Also, this is one of the scenes that often gets talked about as being an inspiration for Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, and I can see the reason why. They then realize George's wife, Sherry, may have been eavesdropping, and almost certainly was. So things are starting to go wrong. We then move on to the heist at the racetrack. We see the guys getting into place. It's almost time. Maurice the wrestler causes a big distraction while starting a fight, and Johnny is able to get inside unnoticed. He gets his gun hidden inside a flower box and puts on a mask and gloves. And after gaining entrance to the cashier's counting room, he tells the employees to fill up his bag with money. Not sure how much could fit in there, but back then, this was a lot of money. Oddly, Johnny throws the bag of money and the gun out the window, but obviously someone must be picking it up. And the guys are starting to get paranoid back at the apartment, waiting for Johnny after the heist, including George, who has started drinking. But when the door opens, it isn't Johnny, it's Val, come to rob everyone. Remember Sherry's boyfriend? Yeah, this is him. But since this film veers into noir territory, I was expecting there to be a double cross somewhere. But then George comes out, guns blazing, and shoots Val. Things are going colossally wrong. Gunfights are loud, and they're in an apartment. It seems everyone is shot. Everything has gone wrong. Johnny has picked up the money, but when he goes to the apartment to meet the other guys, and sees George come stumbling out bloody, he knows something is wrong. So he just leaves, buying a suitcase to put the money in, and goes to meet Faye at the airport. Seems the police are already there. Johnny tries to carry on the big suitcase to the plane and keep it with him, but they said it's too big and has to be checked, so he checks it. But as the baggage handlers are moving the bags to the airplane, a dog runs out, and as the guy swerves to avoid him, of course the bag falls off. It opens, and money blows away everywhere, blown by the plane's propellers, it seems. The money literally flies away. As Johnny and Faye try to walk out, the police are alerted to them. Faye tells Johnny, "You've got to run." And he answers, "Yeah, what's the difference?" The last line in the film, and quite fatalistic. Now, I thought since the film ended on a fatalistic, even philosophical tone, that we should say a word about existentialism, because this philosophy and this viewpoint was current to the time this film was being made, and I think it does color the overall downbeat feel of The Killing. Of course, there were well-known existentialist writers who published books in the 1950s or even the 1940s, and who would have been well established in thought circles when Kubrick was writing this script, such as Jean-Paul Sartre, who wrote Being and Nothingness, which of course introduced the concept of, well, nothingness, or Albert Camus, who wrote The Stranger, and gave rise to the idea that life is absurd and the universe is quite meaningless. This type of viewpoint feels like what Johnny expresses at the end of the film when he says, "Yeah, what's the difference?" This film definitely has a philosophical point of view. I also wanted to say a word about the whole noir feel of this film. If you don't know what film noir means, it generally refers to black and white crime dramas from the 1940s and 50s, often with a stark or gritty black and white style and a cynical and hard-bitten attitude. And there's not necessarily a happy ending. I've said before, I think that Eyes Wide Shut could, in some ways, be viewed as a noir film, with its nighttime cityscapes and lonely shots of Dr. Bill walking on the lonely streets. Of course, Eyes Wide Shut is much more than that, but Kubrick's 1950s films, such as The Killing, seem to have that noir feel to them. I guess another point we could make about The Killing is that it is a step above the average crime drama of the era, since at one point we even have our characters having a philosophical conversation at a literal chess academy. And of course, Kubrick liked to play chess. The fact he's so intelligent, that our director is a thinker, also helps elevate the material here. And in a way, it puts me in mind of some of the great cerebral writers from what could even be called the golden era of television, such as Paddy Chayefsky, who, like Stanley, was from the Bronx and got his start on 1950s television before winning an Oscar for Network, or the great Rod Serling of Twilight Zone fame. Seeing the absurdist ending of a Twilight Zone episode like Time Enough at Last could definitely be compared to the existentialist vibes of Stanley Kubrick's crime drama, The Killing. Well, that's my new video about The Killing from 1956. I hope you liked it. Now, it's true, I usually do my analysis on Kubrick's newer films, but I felt this would be a good time to talk about one of the earlier films since I'm actually uploading this the day before Stanley Kubrick's birthday, which is July 26th, also known as Kubrick Day. Also, I'm working on something new for next week, and I hope to have that up soon. And let me say thank you to my awesome comment section. You always have something interesting to say, and I enjoy reading those comments. Also, it would help my channel if you did hit that subscribe button and liked the video. But either way, my name is Shim. Thank you for spending time with me, and happy Kubrick Day!